Hi, guys. Today, we will start with the story Stone Gods Neanderthals, how religion ruled the ancient world, the birth of faith among shadows, a deep silence. The forest stands still, like the breath of a beast before it leaps. Beneath the ancient trees, in the shadows of cliffs and crevices, the oldest human fears awaken. For the Neanderthal, darkness is not just the absence of light, it is a living thing, inhabited by spirits, shadows, and ancestors. Many generations ago, long before the first words, the first songs, or the first legends, faith was born, not as a story told by the fire, but as a feeling, primal, animalistic, yet already profound. Faith meant you were not alone, that someone stood behind you, even if no one was there. In the evening, when the fire's flames flicker in the wind, when light dances on cave walls, Neanderthals watch with unease and awe. These dances are not just the play of light, they are messages, they are spirits. The first signs of faith were not born in imagination but in fear. Someone died from a lightning strike. Someone fell off a cliff for no reason. Someone became sick and perished, though they were strong the day before. The world was too mysterious to remain unexplained. And the explanation came. Everything that happens is the will of unseen forces. They live in stone, in fire, in water, in the sky. They can be angered. They can be pleased. One can speak with them, though not with words. And so, rituals began. Simple movements, tossing dry grass into the fire, sprinkling bones with animal blood, arranging stones in a circle. Yet these actions had meaning. They were an address, a prayer, a request, an apology. In that moment, the Neanderthal was no longer just a being seeking food. He became a being seeking meaning. Sacred places emerged, stones wrapped in silence, caves where the voice echoed strangely, trees whose roots entwined animal skulls. These places weren't chosen by chance. They were felt, in the body, as shivers, in the heart, as stillness, in the mind, as if someone was watching. Each tribe had its own places, its own spirits, its own symbols. But one thing was shared. Faith was a necessity. Without it, man stood alone against nature. With it, he was allied with unseen guardians. And that is when the figure of the stone god appeared. A stone with a polished surface, or with a hole that resembled an eye, or simply shaped like a silhouette. Such stones were never discarded. They were placed near one's head at night. They were carried on journeys. They were hidden from the eyes of strangers. They were named without words, but each name lived in the heart. Stone idols and the mystery of form. When fire became a part of life, it did more than provide warmth. It lit up strange discoveries. Among piles of rocks, sometimes stones were found that seemed to look back. Stones with dimples resembling eyes. Stones whose shapes hinted at bodies. These finds were not random. They evoked awe. And if one member of the tribe felt something special in such a stone, they didn't discard it. They brought it into the cave. They placed it near their sleeping place. They set it by the entrance as a guardian. That's how idols emerged. No arms, no legs, no face, but with a shape, a mystery that seemed alive. One stone resembled the belly of a pregnant female, so it was believed to bring fertility. Another was sharp and dark, like a creature of the night. It was a protector. Yet another was round and smooth, as if the moon lived inside it. Idols were not crafted by hand. They were found, sometimes slightly shaped to emphasize their form. But the essence lay in the discovery, as if the spirit itself wanted to be found. Among Neanderthal women, those who found such stones were especially valued. They were respected, called daughters of the earth. It was said they had an inner ear, the ability to hear the silence of stone. They were not priestesses. That concept had not yet been born. But they were the thread connecting the tribe to forces that lived beyond time. Each idol had its place. It could not be moved without the elder's permission. It couldn't be touched with dirty hands. Sometimes food was placed next to it, or a pelt, or the blood of a slain beast. It was an offering, not out of fear, but out of respect. From time to time, strange rituals occurred. Not everyone understood their meaning, but everyone felt it had to be done. At dawn, when fog crawled along the ground, the tribe gathered at a place of power, one of the elders whispered. Someone tossed bones into the fire. Someone smashed an animal's skull against a stone. Someone sang in a trembling voice, as if calling out into the dark. This is how days of worship passed. Not celebrations, but reminders that the world is alive, that it listens, and that every action, from catching fish to birthing a child, must be done not carelessly, but with awareness of those who watch from beneath the earth, from behind the trees, from the very sky. The secrets of stone and the spirits of fire. As the years passed, humanity became more aware of its dependence on nature. They saw how the cold morning turned into a warm day, how the grass grew, and how the animals wandered into the forests. Stone, fire, and water were no longer just materials for survival, but also objects of worship. These elements gained a special power. Fire became the most important of all the elements. It warmed, it illuminated, it frightened enemies. But fire was also dangerous. Fire could become a tyrant. It could destroy everything in its path, and the one who controlled it controlled life. Among those who knew how to light a fire, there was special respect. The person who could start a fire without risking their health or life was considered sacred. These were the people who were called priests of fire. They would light the fire and burn special herbs, bones, and fur in it. They believed that fire purified, that it helped them establish a connection with the spirits. Additionally, these people, by studying the power of fire, began to create special stone items that served as a link between the world of spirits and the world of the living. The stone figurines that decorated homes became more than symbols. They turned into messengers that could connect the earthly people with unseen forces. Fire became even more significant with the arrival of winter. During the cold months, when the animals hid and people faced a shortage of food, they would gather around the fire to survive. Fire was a symbol of warmth, life, and strength. The importance of this element in the tribe's life cannot be overstated. With this, new rituals appeared. In the cold season, fire became the center of all ceremonies. In the evening, when the light dimmed, the priests would light the fire, and everyone would gather around it. Fire was so important that the tribe considered it a sacred being, giving life and salvation. People believed that the spirits of fire could help them in difficult times, but for this, they had to know how to handle the fire. And every evening, as they watched the flames consume the wood and crackle in the night's silence, they felt that fire had become their ally and friend. Stone sanctuaries and the rights of primitive people. As the tribes began to master the world around them, they started building their first sanctuaries. These were not temples in the way we understand them today. The sanctuaries were simple, often consisting of a series of stone structures arranged on the ground in a specific order, giving them sacred significance. The stones could be arranged in a circle, with a central stone as a symbol of power and authority. The sanctuaries, like the stone figurines, served as a link between the people and the spirits with whom they believed they were connected. People believed that these places were inhabited by the spirits of their ancestors, as well as forces that helped them cope with life's difficulties. The first sanctuaries were often located in forests or by rivers, places where nature was the most powerful and unpredictable. These were places where important rituals took place, related to hunting, food gathering, or conception. These sanctuaries had not only spiritual, but also practical significance. They served as landmarks, determining the tribe's territory and marking where it was safe to live and hunt. The stone rings arranged around the sanctuaries created a kind of protection, forming a space that was believed to shield from evil spirits. These rituals were important not only for survival, but also for maintaining the morale of the tribe. The stones served as a reminder that people were not alone in this world, and that they were connected to those who came before them. In the sanctuaries of the tribe, the most important rituals took place, such as initiation into adulthood, sacrifices, thanksgiving prayers for a successful hunt, and requests for protection from predators and diseases. At the center of these sanctuaries, there often stood a stone figurine, possibly representing one of the spirits or gods. This was the focal point to which all prayers and invocations were directed. The day at the sanctuary began with a special ritual. Fires were lit early in the morning as dawn was breaking. Women and men would conduct simple purification rituals and prayers to the forces of nature. The stones in these sanctuaries became a place not only for worship, but also for special gatherings, when the tribe made important decisions about life and survival. Ancient customs and rituals, the forces of nature as gods. As primitive people began to understand the power of nature, they began to see it not only as a source of life, but also as a threat. Rain, lightning, strong winds, and earthquakes, all of these came to be perceived as manifestations of the will of the gods. Every element of nature acquired its own personality and divine significance. Special attention was given to lightning, storms, and tempests. People believed that lightning was a powerful strike from a god, purging the earth of everything unnecessary. Every thunderclap and flash of lightning was a sign that the god was opening its gates to communicate with the people. These moments were dangerous, but at the same time, they gave people a sense of closeness to the divine. Lightning became a deity, worshipped with great reverence. It symbolized power, destruction, and rebirth. According to ancient beliefs, lightning could destroy the old world to create a new, more just one. Tribes that worshipped lightning were known for their sacrificial rituals, including offerings of animals and sometimes humans, to appease the god and win its favor. On the other hand, rain and rivers were seen as deities associated with fertility and life. People believed that rain brought life to all things on earth, and rivers were the blood vessels of the earth, through which water transferred life. Without rain, life could not exist, and rivers symbolized continuous movement and renewal. Nature became not just the backdrop for life, but its very foundation. People connected their fate with the forces they worshipped. Each day began with a prayer or gratitude to the spirits for the gift of life, for the harvest, for a successful hunt. Likewise, each evening ended with a ritual aimed at preserving life and health. For ancient people, it was crucial to maintain harmony with the world of nature, because disrupting that harmony could lead to misfortune and disaster. This is why most of their rituals were focused on appeasing the spirits and forces of nature. They believed that by adhering to certain customs and rituals, they could avoid the wrath of the gods and live in harmony with the world. Sacrifices. The path to the gods and maintaining balance. Sacrifices played a central role in the religious life of Neanderthals. These rituals were not just acts of worship, but a way to maintain a connection with the gods, ensure the welfare of the tribe, and uphold cosmic order. A sacrifice was not always an act of death. Sometimes fruits, animals, or even items of significance to the tribe were offered as gifts. However, the primary act of sacrifice was the offering of an animal. In some cases, it could even be a person, a chosen member of the tribe who gave themselves as a sacrifice for the well-being of others. This person was often seen as a symbol of the tribe, and their death served as a transition into another world, which, according to ancient beliefs, was necessary for restoring harmony. Sacrifices followed a strict structure and ceremonial execution. Before making a sacrifice, purification rituals were performed, washing, using herbs, and smoke mixtures to symbolize cleansing from evil spirits. The chief priest or elder of the tribe had the authority to conduct these rituals and bless the sacrifices. Sacrifices always took place in sacred locations, near altars or on stone platforms used for offering gifts. These sites were often found in forests, on high ground, or in caves, places that in Neanderthal culture were charged with special energy and perceived as zones of intersection between worlds. These sites could also serve as places for communication with the spirits of ancestors. The death of an animal or a person was not seen as an end, but as a transition into a new cycle of life. Thus, sacrifice symbolized the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, which was an integral part of the spiritual life of the Neanderthals. The belief that death was only a passage to another state reinforced their faith in the immortality of the soul and the continuity of generations. The role of spirits and ancestors, a life oriented toward connection with the world of the dead. For Neanderthals, spirits and ancestors played a crucial role in their religious worldview. They believed that the world of the dead was not separate or distant from the world of the living, but was in constant interaction with it. Through the veneration of spirits and ancestors, they sought to maintain harmony in the life of the tribe, turning to them for advice, protection, or help. The image of ancestors was so important that their cult was not just a part of religious practice, but formed the foundation of the social structure. The veneration of ancestors was linked to moral norms, traditions, and even laws that the tribe considered sacred. Elders were typically those who transmitted knowledge of spiritual practices and rituals, as well as preserved collective memories and experiences passed down through generations. Each tribe had its own traditions for communicating with ancestors. One of the most popular rituals involved communing with spirits through totems, depictions of animals, or objects that were associated with the spirits of ancestors. It was believed that these objects possessed magical power and could serve as intermediaries between the people and the world of the dead. Nighttime ceremonies were also widespread, where fires were lit on dark bonfires, symbolizing the connection with the spirits of ancestors. During such rituals, songs and loud cries often called upon spirits for help and protection. However, despite the respect and veneration of ancestors, the tribe also believed that spirits could bring both prosperity and misfortune. Therefore, all actions aimed at maintaining peace and order were always fraught with danger. Improper rituals or failure to perform ceremonies could result in the ancestors' anger, leading to droughts, illnesses, or other misfortunes. Thus, every member of the tribe perceived the responsibility of observing traditions as their sacred duty. Following these traditions was essential not only for personal well-being, but also for the survival of the entire tribe. The role of sacred animals, totems and symbols of power in religious practices. Animals held a special place in the lives of Neanderthals. They were not just sources of food and tools, but also played a role as sacred beings, acting as intermediaries between the world of the living and the world of spirits. Religious practices included the veneration of specific animals as totems, symbols of strength and protection. Totems played an important role in daily life. Each tribe or family group might have had its own sacred animal, which was considered a protector and guide. These animals typically possessed qualities that were revered by the tribe. For example, the bear, with its power and bravery, could symbolize strength and protection, while the owl, with its nocturnal activity and wisdom, symbolized knowledge and hidden secrets. Hunting these animals could be part of a ritual, and such events were often accompanied by singing, dancing, and offering sacrifices in gratitude for the powers granted. The cult of animals wasn't limited to just their veneration. Sometimes cave walls or rock formations would feature images of these creatures, created with particular care, symbolizing their importance and role in the tribe's life. Some depictions might have been part of a ritual aimed at requesting help in hunting, fertility, or protection from external threats. Times, an individual's life could be dedicated to a particular animal. For instance, in the case of a warrior's death who was associated with the bear, their body might be buried with a bear skin or other artifacts related to that animal. This meant they were protected and would be further guarded by the spirit of their totem. Animals also played a key role in rituals and ceremonies, aimed at establishing a connection with nature and its spirits. Their sacrifices served not only as acts of gratitude, but also as a way to maintain balance between nature, humans, and spirits, preserving harmony and well-being on Earth. Prophecies and omens. How Neanderthals interpreted natural phenomena. Nature and its phenomena were not only vital sources of food and resources for Neanderthals, but also significant omens that could predict the future or warn of potential dangers. Prophecies and predictions played a crucial role in religious practices. Neanderthals interpreted changes in nature, such as animal behavior, weather events, and the phases of the moon and sun, as signs from the spirits they worshipped. One of the most significant signs was the behavior of animals, especially those connected to the tribe's totems. For example, if a bear or wolf acted unusually in the forest, it was seen as a harbinger of change in the tribe's life. Special attention was given to bird behavior, as their flight and direction could be considered messages from the spirits. If a bird flew toward a lake, it might signify that the water resources would be exhausted in the future, and the tribe would need to find new sources of water. Equally important were weather phenomena, which could be interpreted as omens for future harvests or weather conditions. Storms, lightning, or unusual clouds were signs of spirits interfering with human affairs. For instance, if a strong storm was observed on a specific day, it might signal the need for a special ritual to appease the storm spirit and gain protection from natural disasters. The wise men and elders of the tribe were the ones who made decisions based on these signs. They often possessed special knowledge on how to interpret natural phenomena. They might have used various methods of divination, such as interpreting animal tracks, cracks in stones, or embers in the fire. These practices gave them the ability to understand what the tribe could expect in the future and how best to act. Famous prophecies were often recorded on cave walls or passed down through generations, through songs and rituals. All of this was part of the sacred experience that provided Neanderthals with confidence in their connection with the spirits and nature. Rite of passage. How Neanderthals marked important stages of life. One of the most important aspects of Neanderthal life were the rites of passage, which symbolized the most significant moments in the life of each individual. These could include rituals associated with birth, coming of age, marriage, and death. These rites reflected a deep connection with the spirit world and also served as an important moment for strengthening the social order and unity of the tribe. The earliest of the rites of passage was the ritual of introduction to the world of the living. It took place shortly after birth and could involve a series of symbolic actions aimed at ensuring the newborn's protection from evil spirits. The mother would perhaps make an offering of food or clothing in honor of the god of fertility, seeking to ensure the child's health and well-being. When children reached adolescence, they underwent initiation rites that marked their entry into the adult world. These rituals could involve trials, such as hunting or other survival tests. They were not only physical challenges, but also tests of spiritual maturity. Successfully completing such rituals meant that the adolescent was ready for adult life, including taking on roles within the tribe, and possibly marriage. Marriage itself was an important rite of passage. For Neanderthals, it was not just a union between two individuals, but the merging of two lineages with significant consequences for the tribe's social structure. The man and woman entering marriage assumed new responsibilities, not only in their relationship with each other, but also to the community. It was expected that the couple would work together for the good of the tribe, carrying out tasks related to food provision, hunting, and gathering. The process of death was also surrounded by rituals. The deceased were often buried in special places, possibly in caves, with items that might be needed in the afterlife. Death was not viewed as an end, but as a transition into another world, where the person continued to exist as a spirit, watching over their descendants and the tribe. The most important elements of the ceremony were songs, dances, and specific rituals intended to ensure the safe journey of the soul into the afterlife. Women in religious practices, the role of priestesses and keepers of the fire. The role of women in the religious practices of Neanderthals was unique and important. Women were often considered the keepers of the fire and responsible for maintaining a connection with the spirits. Fire was the binding element between the human world and the spirit world, and women played a crucial role in its upkeep and use. Priestesses and shamans were likely women who possessed special knowledge of the spiritual world and could make direct contact with the spirits. These women served important functions within the tribe, including performing rituals, healing with herbs, and engaging in shamanic practices associated with predicting the future. Many rituals in which women played a key role were connected to fertility. Women embodied nature itself and their connection to it. Key moments such as sowing, harvest, and the birth of new tribe members were associated with female power. Thus, women not only ensured the physical continuation of the tribe, but also maintained harmony between the human world and the spirit world. Women could also be the main keepers of sacred knowledge related to natural forces: fire, water, earth. These elements were important components of religious rituals, and the role of women in controlling them was central. This knowledge was passed down from mothers to daughters and was a part of raising future generations. The forces of nature and spirit worship. How Neanderthals perceived the world around them. Neanderthals had a deep connection with nature and worshipped spirits that, according to their beliefs, governed the forces of nature. Earth, water, air, and fire were sacred elements with which harmony had to be maintained. Each element had its own power and unique influence on the tribe's life. The earth symbolized stability and fertility. It provided everything necessary for life: food, shelter, and materials for tools. Worship of the spirits of the earth was linked to requests for a good harvest, protection from natural disasters, and ensuring a safe journey to new places of habitation. Water was considered a sacred element, the source of life and purification. Rituals connected with water were often performed near rivers or lakes. These rituals involved cleansing, washing, and asking the water spirits for good luck in finding food and water. Water was also associated with changes and transitions, both in human life and in nature. Air was linked with the breath of life, movement, and change. Expectations of transformation and hope for better times were often tied to the spirits of air. The spirits of the air could bring messages about events happening elsewhere and were used to predict the future. Fire, as an element associated with sacrifices and purification, was central to Neanderthal rituals. It was believed that fire could serve as an intermediary between the world of humans and the world of spirits. It was used for warmth, cooking food, and lighting, as well as for connecting with the world of the dead. Ritual sacrifices. How Neanderthals interacted with spirits through offerings. Sacrifices played an important role in the religious life of Neanderthals. These rituals were a way to establish a connection with the spirits of nature, asking for help, well-being, and protection. Neanderthals believed that spirits could be both protectors and punishing forces, so it was important to regularly offer sacrifices to maintain their favor. Sacrifices were usually performed at sacred places, which were chosen for their special energetic significance, such as high mountains, sacred forests, or riverbanks. These places became the center of religious practices, where members of the tribe gathered to participate in rituals. The types of sacrifices varied depending on the purpose of the ritual. The most common sacrifices were animals, such as deer, bears, or smaller creatures that were important food sources for the tribe. Sacrificial gifts could also include items like stone tools, decorations, or other objects symbolizing wealth and power. Sometimes sacrifices were made in honor of spirits associated with weather phenomena. For example, to appease the spirit of rain, the tribe might offer a living creature or food, hoping that this would ensure enough rainfall for a good harvest. More complex rituals also took place, involving self-sacrifice. For instance, in the event of serious illness or threats from other tribes, shamans or priestesses might offer their own blood or part of their body as a sacrifice, believing that by doing so, they could appease the spirits and calm them. Sacrifices played a huge role in the life of the tribe, maintaining not only physical well-being, but also moral and spiritual harmony with the surrounding world. Shamans and healers, spiritual guidance, and care for the tribe. Shamans and healers were important figures in the lives of Neanderthals. They not only possessed knowledge about nature and the laws of the world, but also held a special place in the religious and spiritual practices of the tribe. They had the power to heal, predict the future, and appease the spirits. Shamans were often seen as intermediaries between the human world and the world of spirits. They could summon nature spirits, communicate with them, and receive guidance on how the tribe should act. To do so, shamans performed various rituals, such as dances, songs, or even the use of psychoactive substances, which helped them enter a trance and gain access to supernatural forces. Healers, on the other hand, used knowledge of herbs, roots, and other natural remedies to treat diseases and injuries. They were essential participants in the daily life of the tribe, caring for the health of all its members. This knowledge was passed down from generation to generation, and although it was often tied to mysticism and religious beliefs, it also included practical knowledge for treating wounds, infections, and other illnesses. Shamans and healers were often women. As in Neanderthal society, women could also serve as spiritual guides. This added significance to the feminine role in the spiritual life of the tribe, where the balance between masculine and feminine forces played a crucial role. Special attention was given to rituals conducted for healing diseases or treating injuries sustained during hunting or warfare. Shamans and healers used various ritual items, such as amulets or herbs, and also performed purification ceremonies to drive away evil spirits and help a person return to normal life. Thus, shamans and healers were the primary conduits for the spiritual and physical well-being of the tribe, and their role in Neanderthal life was invaluable. Symbols and amulets. Magic of protection and power. Symbols and amulets played an important role in the religious life of Neanderthals, serving not only as ornaments, but also as powerful tools of magical protection. They were used to defend against evil spirits, diseases, or dangerous animals, as well as to attract luck and strength. Amulets were typically made from natural materials such as bones, animal teeth, stones, wood, and other resources available to the tribe. They often took the form of animals, people, or natural objects, such as the sun, the moon, or a mountain. These symbols were tied to magic and religion, reflecting important aspects of the tribe's life. Moreover, amulets and symbols often held personal significance. Each tribe member could have their own amulet, crafted to suit their specific needs and life situations. For example, a hunter might wear an amulet shaped like a lion or a bear to gain the strength of these animals in their work, while women might wear amulets in the shape of fertility symbols or charms for protection against diseases. Shamans and healers often used amulets in their rituals. They believed that certain symbols possessed special powers that could influence the tribe's fate. Amulets also played a role in the initiation of young people into adulthood, serving as a protective charm for those embarking on a new stage of their lives. Amulets, like the symbols themselves, were an important aspect not only of religious, but also of social life among Neanderthals. They helped strengthen the bonds between tribe members, serving as evidence of belonging to a common cause and belief. The mysteries of resurrection and death rituals. The transition to the afterlife. Neanderthal religion included not only elements of worship of natural forces and spirits, but also profound rituals related to life and death. Death was an important stage of existence, and it was treated with great respect. Neanderthals believed in life after death, and their rituals were aimed at ensuring a peaceful transition to the afterlife. One of the most significant rituals associated with death was burial. The deceased were buried with respect, often with items that could be useful in the afterlife: tools, amulets, and ornaments. This suggests that Neanderthals had a concept of the afterlife and believed that the deceased continued to exist in another world, where they would need the same items as in life. Burials were often accompanied by various magical practices and rituals. For example, shamans or other spiritual leaders performed ceremonies to help the souls of the dead find their way to the afterlife. In some cases, the bodies of the deceased were buried in caves or protected by stones, symbolizing their protection on their journey to the other world. An important element of the death ritual was the resurrection ceremony. Neanderthals believed that some spirits could return to the earth to help the living. This return was symbolic and often accompanied by ritual actions aimed at maintaining a connection with the spirit world. Death and the transition to the afterlife remained central themes that shaped Neanderthal religious worldview. These rituals gave tribe members confidence that death was not the end, but merely a transition to another form of existence. Forest spirits. Worship of natural forces. Neanderthals believed that nature and all of its elements were not merely objects that existed on their own, but manifestations of spiritual forces controlling the world. Forests, mountains, rivers, and even individual trees were important centers of worship. Forest spirits held a special place in this world. The forest was considered a sacred place, full of mysterious powers. Neanderthals believed that forest spirits could be both benevolent and malevolent. Some of them were protectors of the tribe, guarding it against dangers, while others could bring illness or misfortune. To communicate with the forest spirits, Neanderthals used specific rituals such as dancing, singing, and making sacrifices. They believed that through these ceremonies they could establish contact with the spirits and ask for their help. Often, special ceremonies were held to appease the malevolent spirits, or to thank the benevolent ones. In addition, Neanderthals also used the forest to practice their hunting skills. The forest was not only a place for spiritual rites, but also a vital resource for survival. Here they gathered wood, hunted animals, and collected plants that were used for food and medicine. Thus, the forest was not just a physical space for Neanderthals, but a spiritual center where they sought strength, protection, and a connection with the spirit world. Rituals of day and night. The division of time in Neanderthal. Life Neanderthals also perceived time as something sacred, connected to the cyclical nature of life. In their culture, there was a clear division of time, based on the change of day and night, which was dictated not only by physical processes, but also by spiritual rituals. The day was a time for work, hunting, and gathering food. During the day, people went out in search of food, worked on building shelters, and prepared materials for protecting the tribe. It was a period when they actively used the forces of nature for their survival. Night, on the other hand, was a time for rest and spiritual practices. Neanderthals believed that, with the arrival of darkness, there was special access to spirits and magic. At night, rituals were performed to maintain harmony with nature and the spirits that protected the tribe. Fire ceremonies, dances, and singing became an important part of these nocturnal rituals, where shamans and the tribe's elders communicated with supernatural forces. For Neanderthals, night was not just a time of darkness, but also a time when they could strengthen their connection with the spirits of their ancestors and with the world beyond the visible. Thus, the division of day and night played a significant role in the spiritual life of Neanderthals. It allowed them not only to ensure physical survival, but also to maintain the inner harmony of the tribe through rituals and spiritual communication. Women and gods. The role of women in religious practices. Women in Neanderthal tribes played an important role, not only in daily life, but also in religious practices. While men often engaged in hunting and protecting the tribe, women were often the link between the human world and the spirits. Neanderthal women were deeply involved in rituals related to fertility, the life cycle, and the overall well-being of the tribe. This included not only participating in ceremonial sacrifices, but also performing various magical practices aimed at ensuring the health and prosperity of the entire tribe. Special attention was given to women due to their role in reproduction. The tribe revered women as bearers of life, and there were many rituals associated with conception, pregnancy, and childbirth. These rituals included prayers and sacrifices directed toward fertility gods, asking for the birth of strong and healthy children. Neanderthals also believed that women possessed special magical powers, which they used to maintain a connection with the spirit world. This could include practices such as divination, the use of herbs for healing and protection from disease, as well as participation in ceremonies designed to strengthen the bond with natural forces. Thus, the role of women in the religious life of Neanderthals was pivotal. They not only ensured the physical survival of the tribe through their practices, but also played an important role in maintaining spiritual balance and the connection to the divine world. Hunting for gods, connection with spirits and the world of the dead. For Neanderthals, hunting was not just about finding food. It was a sacred act, filled with symbolism and deep religious beliefs. Hunting large animals such as mammoths or wild bison was seen not only as a physical challenge, but also as a ritual in which both men and women participated. The connection with animals was so important that sometimes Neanderthals believed they could make contact with the spirits of the animals they had killed. When Neanderthals went hunting, they performed certain rituals to bless the spirits of the animals and ensure a successful outcome. These rituals included chants, dances, and even sacrifices, usually in the form of part of the meat, to please the animal spirits. However, the connection with the spirit world extended beyond hunting. Neanderthals believed in the existence of the world of the dead, which was an integral part of their religious practices. Ritual burials were an important aspect of their beliefs. Items were often found in graves that were believed to accompany the deceased on their journey to the spirit world. Stone tools, ornaments, and sometimes even sacrifices to comfort and guide the soul into the afterlife. The tribes revered their ancestors, and this worship of the dead was an essential element of their spiritual life. Every act of hunting, every ritual, was connected to a request for protection and blessings from the spirits of the dead and animals. The theme of spirits and hunting intertwined with everyday life, giving every action a sacred meaning. Thus, the connection with spirits and the world of the dead was not only a part of religious practices, but also a crucial element of survival. For Neanderthals, this connection was vital, and they actively used their beliefs in the spirit world to strengthen and maintain harmony within the tribe. Sacred sites, ritual caves, and sanctuaries. Neanderthals, like many ancient peoples, had their sacred places. These places were not only shelters, but also centers of spiritual life for the tribe. Caves and various natural formations, such as stone cliffs or arches, were used for rituals and worship of gods. Many caves where Neanderthals lived were also places of burial and worship. These sites became symbols of the connection between the living and the dead, and they served to strengthen the spirit of the tribe. Some caves were decorated with images of animals, which may have symbolized a connection with the spirits of nature. Animal remains found in these locations suggest that caves may have served not only as shelters, but also as sanctuaries for worshiping spirits. Neanderthals also used caves for conducting rituals, which could include chanting, dancing, and sacrifices. These rituals were connected to the belief that the spirits of nature and ancestors could influence the tribe's fate, its success in hunting, and other aspects of life. Caves served as places where the tribe could gather to communicate with spirits, conducting rituals in the hope of receiving strength and luck. Such places were sacred and could be guarded territories. Ritual caves were often located in hard-to-reach places to preserve their purity and sanctity. Although Neanderthals did not leave detailed records of their religious practices, archaeological finds suggest that these sacred sites were an essential part of their spiritual life and customs. Thus, sacred sites played a crucial role in the religious practices of Neanderthals, serving as places of connection with spirits and ancestors, where important rituals were conducted for the well-being and protection of the tribe. Symbolism and ritual objects, magic and the power of amulets. For Neanderthals, magic and symbolism were integral parts of their spiritual life. Ritual objects, amulets, and symbols that they used played a significant role in their religious practices. These items were not only for decoration, but also held deep magical meaning, connecting their owners to the spirit world, protecting them from evil forces, and bringing luck in important aspects of life. Among the ritual objects discovered by archaeologists, stone and bone amulets are frequently found, and they may have been used in rituals and hunting. Amulets could take the form of animal representations, symbolizing the spirit of a specific animal, or abstract symbols meant to provide protection or attract good fortune. These items were often worn by Neanderthals as talismans or used as sacrifices to appease spirits. There are also ritual objects associated with various ceremonies, such as stone or bone tools used in sacrifices. These objects may have been intended to transfer power to the spirits or invoke their blessings. Symbolism and amulets, in turn, show how deeply Neanderthals believed in the magical power of objects and actions. These symbols were created to influence the spirit world and tame it for their needs, whether for hunting, marital success, or protection from disease. Thus, amulets and ritual objects played a crucial role in Neanderthal religious practices, helping them maintain a connection with spirits and nature, as well as providing protection and success in various aspects of their lives. Keepers of tradition, the elders and shamans of the tribe. In the religious life of Neanderthal society, a special role belonged to the elders and shamans. These were individuals who preserved knowledge passed down through generations and served as mediators between the tribe and the invisible world of spirits. Neanderthal elders possessed wisdom accumulated over many years of life and acted as living chronicles. They remembered the most important events of the tribe, knew where to find the best hunting grounds, when to expect the onset of cold, and how to properly perform rituals. Their experience allowed them to interpret dreams, predict weather changes, and even settle disputes within the tribe, based on long-held customs and religious taboos. Shamans, on the other hand, were those who could speak with spirits. They entered altered states of consciousness through dance, rhythmic drumming, chanting, or special breathing techniques. In these states, they would travel to the spirit world, to seek answers for the tribe, discover the causes of illness, or learn where game animals were hiding. Shamans also conducted rituals and ceremonies filled with symbolic actions, offerings, and the use of sacred objects. Their words were considered prophetic and their actions sacred. A shaman was often both a healer and a spiritual guide. Thus, elders and shamans were the keepers of tradition and intermediaries between worlds. They held the tribe within the bounds of law and sacred norms, ensuring not only physical survival, but also the spiritual well-being of the clan. Rites of passage, from birth to death. In the world of the Neanderthals, every important stage of life was marked by ritual. These actions were not empty traditions. They connected a person to the tribe, to the spirits, and to nature. Without them, life felt incomplete, and the soul unprotected. Birth was perceived as a miracle. When a woman gave birth, elder women were usually nearby, and sometimes the shaman as well. A fire was lit above the cave where the birth took place, and symbolic items were placed nearby. Stones with carved signs, ancestral bones, animal furs. These were believed to protect the mother and newborn from evil spirits. After birth, the infant was rubbed with ash as a sign that they had come from the spirit world into the living one. The name was often given in honor of a natural phenomenon, an animal or an ancestor who had appeared in a dream to one of the elders. The transition to adulthood was another key ritual. For boys, this often meant taking part in their first hunt. The shaman painted symbolic patterns on their bodies, and the young men spent a night alone in the forest or on a mountain where they were supposed to hear the voice of the beast. Girls went through a woman's rite of passage. They were taught crafts, herbs, and child-rearing. When they had their first menstruation, the tribe held a modest feast, a sign that the girl had joined the circle of women, a guardian of life. Death was not an end, but the beginning of a new journey. The Neanderthals buried their dead with care and respect. The body was placed in the earth, often in a fetal position, as if returning to the womb of Mother Earth. Tools, food, and ornaments were left nearby. Sometimes, flowers. These symbolized the soul's journey and protection in the other world. The shaman sang songs of passage, and the relatives raised their hands to the sky, giving the soul back to the spirits. Thus, from birth to death, the life of a Neanderthal was woven through with rituals. They helped maintain a sense of connection with the tribe, the ancestors, and the great forces, unseen but always near. The stone gods of the Neanderthals. Waking dreams. When the sun rose over the plain, its light fell not only on trees and hunters' bodies, it brought life to stone faces, idols embedded in the ground near caves, figures standing in the center of camps, crude but imposing images of faces, animals, and creatures not found in nature. These stones were not merely objects. They were embodiments of other worlds, bridges between reality and what lies beyond. Neanderthals didn't build temples, but they created sacred space. Every boulder, every cave wall could become an altar. A stone became a god when people believed in it. When the tribe gathered in a circle, murmuring low words, when children offered nuts as gifts, and the elder placed a hand on the idol's forehead. That was the moment when the spirit world entered the world of flesh. Religion for Neanderthals was not a separate realm. It wasn't divided from hunting, food, death, or sex. Everything was infused with it. Every step on the ground was not just movement, but a journey across a living organism. Rain was not just precipitation, but the tears of the sky. A successful hunt wasn't mere chance, but the favor of spirits. They believed that spirits lived in bones. That's why the skull of a slain animal was hung over the cave entrance, so the animal's spirit would guard the home. Ancestors' bones were placed near the fire, sometimes smeared with ochre. Ochre wasn't just paint, It was the blood of the earth. They covered their bodies with it to become visible to the spirits, so the spirits could recognize their own. Women were especially connected to religion. They gave birth and thus were linked to the world's most secret force, life. Often women were the first to notice signs: cracks in the stone, unusual animal behavior, strange dreams. Old women, hands dusted with ochre, sitting by the fire, were the keepers of memory and the will of the gods. Intimate life was not outside the sacred either. Sex was seen not merely as physical union, but as the merging of forces, the continuation of the world. Some images on cave walls, often mistaken today for hunting scenes, were actually ritual symbols of fertility and life's eternal return. The gods were neither kind nor cruel, they simply were. A stone split in two could mean a sign of impending trouble, a wolf appearing during the day, the spirits intervening. A snake bite, punishment for a forgotten rite. Religion didn't comfort, it warned. It didn't explain, it made one cautious. Dreams were important. In dreams, spirits came, spoke, revealed. Sometimes dreams explained why a child died, why a hunter didn't return. And if a spirit revealed another tribe member as guilty, a ritual of expulsion followed. This wasn't cruelty. It was the restoration of balance. Every morning began with a touch to the stone. The elder touched the idol's forehead and whispered words to awaken the forces. Then, the men left to hunt. The women tended fire and food, but all knew. The most important act had already occurred. The world's power had awakened once more. The day was permitted. Neanderthal religion didn't need books. It was written in stone, ash, and blood. It lived in gestures, in repeated rituals, in fear of the unseen. And though tens of thousands of years have passed, their stone gods still stand in forgotten places, facing the wind, backs to the sun. And if you approach them at night, you may hear them breathe. Neanderthals, the call of the ancestors. What they remember of them, echoes of dust. The first rays of the sun touch the moss on the cold ground. The forest sleeps, but memory awakens. Somewhere deep down, in the genes, in the shadows of dreams, in the silence of stillness, the call lives. It is not spoken in words, not written on parchment. It is the whisper of bones, the breath of embers, a gaze through millennia. Humanity moves forward, but echoes of the past accompany it at every step. Neanderthals are not merely vanished beings. They are part of us. Their blood flows in our veins. Their fears, their hopes, their fire, all of it lives within us, even if we don't realize it. What do we remember of them? And more importantly, what do they remember of us? This is not a tale of science, not of dry facts. It is a journey through intuition, through images, through legends, through gifts of blood, through traces left in ash, through symbols carved in stone, through memories that were never personal but became ancestral. We will travel to a place where reason had not yet separated from nature, where the stars were gods and the darkness of night, a primal friend. In every person lives an ancient voice, and sometimes it speaks louder than usual, in the gusts of wind, in the crackle of a fire, in a dream where we run barefoot across rocky ground, and we are not afraid. This is not imagination. This is the call. The echo of bones. When the wind brushes the mountaintops and drifts through valleys where Neanderthal feet once stepped, it carries not only dust, but memory. These hills remember. The caves still hold the breath of those who lived without words, yet with hearts full of strength. Deep in the forests, beneath layers of earth and oblivion, lie fragments of their world. Stone tools, charred fire pits, broken bones marked by blades. Each fragment is more than an object. It is a voice, It is a call. When modern humans gaze at the faint outline of a jawbone or the weathered surface of flint, they feel a strange tingling beneath the skin, as if something is calling from within, from deep time. It is not merely curiosity about the past, it is the memory of blood. They were different, but not alien. Their lives were not recorded on parchment, their names do not echo in chronicles. But every muscle, every motion, every fire they kindled in a cold cave, that is us. That is the beginning of what we became. And when we look into the eyes of a skull lying behind museum glass, we do not simply see bone. We hear a question: do you remember me? And the traces of ashes. The fire has died, but the embers still retain heat. The Neanderthals moved on, but the earth remained to remember. The ashes of bonfires, darkened stones, charred bones of beasts. All of it was absorbed into the soil, becoming part of the landscape, part of memory. Thousands of years later, when a man with a shovel and brush carefully brushes sand from an ancient bone, when an archaeologist peers into the empty eye socket of a skull, the world of the past will shudder. The people of today do not know, but they walk the roads once laid by the Neanderthals. Their camps turned into villages, paths became streets, caves, museum halls. We built cities on their bones, remembering them only in textbooks. But memory is stronger than paper. Sometimes, an ancient echo sounds within us, in the fear of the dark, in the desire for warmth, in the yearning for the stars. These feelings are not ours. They came from deep in the past, from a place where a Neanderthal woman stroked the face of her infant, where a man gazed at the setting sun, not knowing words, but knowing that it would return. Myths, legends, fairy tales. They are not fiction, they are echoes. We think we invented spirits, but maybe it's the Neanderthals whispering to us through our blood. Maybe they didn't disappear, they dissolved into us. Sudden gusts of wind in the forest, an unexpected sense of anxiety, a glance into the fire that mesmerizes. It's all more than just reaction. These are tiny crystals of memory, embedded in the brain, inherited from those who knew that survival was not only about dexterity, but about connection. They drew on the walls, not for beauty, but so as not to forget, so that later, through time and flesh, we would see and remember. And we remember, unconsciously, in songs without words, in the rhythm of the drum, in the desire to shelter in a cave when thunder roars, in the feeling that you are not alone, even in solitude. This is the call of the ancestors. This is the whisper of the Neanderthals. They do not ask. They simply remind. The silent voice of stone. The landscape had changed, but the echo of the Neanderthals still vibrated through the bones of the earth. As the ages passed, humans built their civilizations, crafted their stories, and dominated the world. But somewhere, buried deep beneath the layers of time, the ancient pulse of their ancestors beat quietly. Not everyone could hear it. Not everyone could feel it. But some did. In the unhurried rhythm of nature, in the rustle of leaves, in the flow of rivers, there are moments when the veil between the past and present grows thin. It is during these moments that the ancestors' presence is most tangible. The stone tools scattered across ancient campsites still held their purpose. The sharp edges, worn from use, whispered of a time when they served not as artifacts, but as instruments of survival. The bones, cracked from the pressure of ancient hands, told stories of lives lived at the mercy of the environment. The fire pits, filled with the remnants of meals long consumed, still held the warmth of their creators. Even the stars, which were once the Neanderthals' guides in the night sky, continue to shine in the same constellations. We, too, look up at them and wonder. Did they look at the same stars? Were they searching for the same answers? The Neanderthals, it seems, were not just survivors, they were seekers. Seekers of knowledge, of meaning, of connection, and even in their death, they left something behind. Not just bones or tools, but a legacy of curiosity, of an innate drive to understand their world and their place in it. It is in the quiet moments of reflection that we begin to sense their presence. It's not in the loud, dramatic gestures of history, but in the small, fleeting sensations that stir the soul. The soft whisper of wind through the trees, the crackle of fire, the deep, resonant hum of the earth beneath our feet. We think of the Neanderthals as primitive, as a race lost to time, but perhaps they were not so different from us after all. They too sought meaning. They too sought connection. And in the quietest moments, when we feel the pull of something ancient within us, we are reminded that we carry their legacy. A legacy not of stone and bone, but of spirit. As we sit around our modern fires, surrounded by the comfort of civilization, we unknowingly echo their past. The rituals, the warmth, the shared stories, they are not new. They are ancient, as old as humanity itself. And in those moments, we are not alone. The Neanderthals are with us, watching from the shadows, urging us to remember. For in their memory, we find our own. Echoes of the forgotten. The world had moved on, but the echoes of the Neanderthals never fully disappeared. In the depths of our own existence, there are whispers of something older, something deeper than the modern world can comprehend. There are moments when the connection to that ancient past becomes undeniable, when it feels as though the line between then and now blurs, and the voices of the past speak once more. It happens in the stillness of a forest, where the ancient trees stand as silent sentinels. It is in the way the birds call from the branches, their songs a distant reminder of the primal world that the Neanderthals once inhabited. The animals that now roam the earth, from the smallest insect to the largest mammal, carry within them a trace of the same wilderness that the Neanderthals knew. But beyond the land, there is the spirit of the Neanderthals, a spirit that can be felt in the bones, in the heartbeat of every human who ever walked upon this earth. We are their children, their legacy. The rituals, the symbols, the shared dreams that we hold on to today were born from them. They may not have known it at the time, but they were laying the foundation for what we now call humanity. Through the remnants of their lives, we come to understand them. We find that they were not the brutish, dim-witted creatures some historians have painted them to be. They were not just a prelude to the rise of Homo sapiens. They were a full expression of what it meant to be human in a world of chaos and beauty. They were artists, storytellers, caregivers, and survivors. And they lived not as individuals, but as a community. Their bonds, formed through shared struggle and shared joy, were as complex as anything we experience today. It's in the fossilized remains of their skeletons that we see evidence of care. Broken bones that healed, evidence of individuals who survived through the help of others. But there is more to their memory than just survival. There is the mystery of their spiritual life, the rituals, the cave paintings, the burial practices. These all suggest that they were not just living beings, but beings who sought meaning beyond their physical world. Perhaps they didn't have the words for it, but they were searching for something transcendent, something that connected them to the greater rhythm of the earth and the stars. As we look back at the remnants of their lives, we begin to see them as they were, not a lost race, but a part of our own story. The Neanderthals' call to us from the other side of time is a reminder that we are all part of the same human journey. Their journey was ours, just as ours will be remembered by those who come after us. In every moment of connection with the earth, in every ritual, in every bond formed, we continue the work that the Neanderthals began. We too seek meaning. We too search for our place in the vastness of the world. And in this, we are their heirs, We are their living memory, and in us, they live on. Their legacy is not just in the bones they left behind, or in the tools they crafted, or in the fire they tended so carefully. It is in the very way we engage with the world, the ways we connect with each other, the ways we find meaning, the ways we understand the universe around us. They are the same ways the Neanderthals once did. And in this, the circle of life, of history, of humanity, continues, ever expanding, ever reaching back to its roots. For as long as we walk this earth, the Neanderthals will never truly be gone. They live on in the things we do, in the ways we love, and in the quietest whispers of our hearts, reminding us that we are never alone. We are and always have been, part of something far greater than ourselves. In the echoes of their forgotten songs, in the whispers of their lost rituals, we hear the truth. The Neanderthals are still with us, and they always will be. The rebirth of memory. Time has a strange way of folding in on itself, of bringing forgotten things to the surface. The modern world, with its advancements and technological prowess, often forgets the ancient rhythms that once governed existence. But deep within, beneath the layers of culture and civilization, there remains a heartbeat, a connection to the first humans, the Neanderthals. It is a quiet pulse that beats in the blood of every living person, an ancient memory that, though faint, has never truly disappeared. As our ancestors once roamed the vast landscapes, guided by the stars, the seasons, and the natural cycles of the earth, so too do we still find ourselves drawn to those same rhythms, even if we don't fully understand them. The Neanderthals, though they have been reduced to myth and fossils, were the first to understand these forces, to live in harmony with them. Their connection to the earth was profound, not merely a physical relationship, but a spiritual one, woven into every part of their lives. It is in the bones of their remains, the artifacts they left behind, that we begin to understand how they saw the world. They did not merely survive, they created meaning. The tools they crafted were not just functional, they were symbolic, imbuing the simplest object with significance. The caves they decorated with paintings were not just shelters, but sacred spaces. Their burial rituals were not simply acts of death, but expressions of belief, marking the transition of their loved ones to another realm. As we reconnect with these ancient ways, we discover something fundamental about ourselves. The Neanderthals, though they lived in a world without modern comforts, had a complexity that is often underestimated. They had a deep sense of community, a bond that transcended individual survival. They cared for their sick and injured, they shared food, and they formed strong emotional ties. The Neanderthals were not just creatures of the wild, they were human in the truest sense of the word. Their spiritual practices, while not as organized or codified as our modern religions, were deeply rooted in their everyday lives. They didn't need churches or temples to connect with the divine. They saw the divine in the very rocks they shaped, the fire they tended, the animals they hunted, and the stars they gazed upon. In a way, they lived as if every moment was a prayer that was answered in the bounty of nature, in the changing of the seasons, and in the bonds they shared with one another. Even now in the modern world, we still seek that connection. We may not see the world the same way the Neanderthals did, but there are moments, quiet moments, sacred moments, when we are reminded of that ancient understanding. Whether in the stillness of the forest, the warmth of a fire, or the gathering of loved ones around a meal, we reach out for that same sense of belonging, of unity with the world around us. And in this search for meaning, we carry forward the legacy of the Neanderthals, the memories of their lives, their struggles, their joys, and their spiritual practices continue to shape us. They remind us that we are not separate from the earth or from each other. We are all connected, woven together by the same threads of existence. We may not know their names, but we know their story. Their journey is our journey, and it is a journey that continues to unfold. As long as we remember them, they live on in our hearts, in our rituals, and in the very essence of who we are. The Neanderthals are not lost to time. They are still with us, guiding us, reminding us of what it means to be truly human. In every step we take, in every bond we form, in every piece of the earth we tend to, we echo the footsteps of the Neanderthals. And through them, we come to understand the timeless truth that we are never truly alone. The memory of the Neanderthals lives within us, a constant presence in the fabric of our lives, urging us to remember where we come from and to honor those who walked before us. Through the ashes of time, the fire has long died in the hearths of the Neanderthals, but their ashes have not vanished. They are scattered in the soil, mixed with the wind, settling in every breath of humanity. Ash is not just the remains of burnt wood. It is a symbol of what has passed, but not disappeared. It is the breath of memory that continues to live, even if we do not hear its voice. Archaeologists find traces of ancient soot, charred bones, stones darkened by heat. Each such find is like a line from a long-forgotten book. We read it not with our eyes, but with intuition, with a sense of connection to those who lived before us. And the more we gaze into this ash, the clearer faces emerge. Not abstract ancestors, but people. Women, men, children, with their fears, dreams, worries. Through the ashes of time, we begin to see Neanderthals were not primitive. Their world was full of emotion, gestures, unspoken prayers. A woman tucking her baby into a fur cocoon by the fire. An old man lifting his eyes to the stars, hoping to find the path of the departed. A teenager drawing a symbol on the cave wall for the first time, not knowing that tens of thousands of years later, this symbol would become a sign for another humanity. Neanderthals were the first echo of culture. They painted, they buried, they cared. They heard the silence of nature not as emptiness, but as speech. They knew how to listen and accept. And perhaps their main message lies not in words, not in tools, but in the silence itself, something we have forgotten how to value. Through the ashes of time, they continue to speak. Their lesson is one of kinship, not dominion over nature, but unity with it. Not separation from one another, but closeness. Their religion required no priests. Each person was a part of the greater spirit. Every stone, tree, fire was alive. Today, we stand at the threshold of great memory. All we need to do is take a step, not backward, but inward, to recognize that our roots are not in concrete, but in the earth, that our soul is not in machines, but in the wind, in the fire, in a gaze full of compassion. And if we accept this, if we remember, then Neanderthals will not be just a chapter in a textbook. They will become a living part of us. They will live again, in our actions, in our feelings, in our thirst to be real. Through the ashes of time, they return, not as shadows, but as light. And this light burns in everyone who remembers they are human. Return to the ashes. They were the first to listen to the wind, not as a threat, but as the voice of the world. Their feet left traces in forests that had no names yet, their bones buried in lands that would later be called home by those who never knew them. This final part of the path is not a chronology, but an echo. Here we do not search for remains, we listen. In the ashes of long-forgotten hearths, the scent of bone, leather, and wet earth lingers. The Neanderthals did not vanish. They dissolved into genes, into myths, into childhood fears, into the feeling that someone watches in the dark. Within each of us, there is a shadow of one who looked at the world with eyes full of moss, rain, and solitude. Their image comes from cracks in cave paintings, from traces of blood on flint, from strange dreams. They were not heroes, not monsters. They were the in-between pause between silence and speech. Their death was not an end, but a retreat into the soft layer of humanity's collective unconscious. When a person stares into the fire, they remember them. When they hear wolves howl in the mountains, they respond to the ancient call. We are not merely their descendants. We are vessels of their memory. Their mistakes repeat. Their fears awaken. Their hopes live on in our rituals. The world has not forgotten the Neanderthals. It simply buried them deep, sometimes in genes, sometimes in legends, sometimes in the loneliness of those born out of time. This story ends not with a period, but with a reverberation. A Neanderthal crouched by the fire gazes into the flames. He says nothing, but we hear him.